I'm really privileged to be able to address you tonight. And I really apologize that I wasn't able to travel to New York, but at least my conscience is a bit cleaner because I didn't have to take all the emissions to travel there. But also it's a bit easier because I may have a couple of tough messages for you, and I won't have to bear the consequences of this. But the good news is that because I'm giving you a dinner talk, I won't actually give you the bad news part of the climate story. However, I will, I do want to show you a little bit from the science. So yes, it's working now. So after all the bad news, and I don't know how many degrees you have right now in Hungary, it is 38 degrees centigrade. But the good news is that was conveyed by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change last October in its report that yes, we actually still can fix this. This boat is not yet on, we can still hop on this. And in fact, you all who are listening to me right now are the key to this revolution that, and what this slide says, the technology is actually in your hand, which is really key to this to a 1.5 degree planet. And let me show you why, although I know you know why, but let me just reinforce why this is so based on this report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change on 1.5 degrees. And I'm sorry, I hope this bit heavy science won't take your appetite away. And if you don't want, you don't have to actually look at it, just close your eyes and imagine real spaghetti instead. There is a lot of spaghetti in this figure. What you see here are all these lines. What these lines are actually the different world visions, how emissions, global emissions can actually go down to either zero or further down to negative emissions and reach 1.5 degrees. I mean, maximize warming at 1.5 degrees. Now let's zoom in on what this actually looks like, what these solutions actually look like. So out of these different spaghettis, there are 4 pieces of the noodles here selected, P1, P2, P3, P4. I won't go into all the details. I just want to show you 2 extreme ones, P1 and P4. How do these different worlds, these different planets look like, which both reach 1.5 degrees, but how are they different? P4 is this one. This is decomposed, the same line, the same emission line here is decomposed. The gray one is the fossil fuel related emissions. So you see they have to go down, although they don't go down all that terribly fast, but only towards a bit after they go to almost zero, a bit after the middle of the century. You see also this orangey, this is called agriculture, forestry, and land use, but it's not an important part. The important part is this yellow, and this is what I want to talk about. This yellow under is a really big part of these scenarios. These are called BECCS, bioenergy combined carbon capture and storage. So most of the, and you see here as well, most of the other scenarios, except for P1, relies a lot on this particular technology. But a lot of scientists have raised a lot of concerns about this technology because it sounds cool that we will, just plant a lot of forests and we will capture all the carbon dioxide from that and won't let it go back to the atmosphere. But the scale of this, in order to do this yellow, is enormous. Just think about it, that we would have to take as much carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere just by forests as basically as we are emitting now. Every year from fossil fuels, because not all of the yellow is just that. So, and we not only have to do it for 1 year, but basically from now forever. And this would mean also that a very significant part of the Earth's land surface, perhaps half or even more, would have to be covered by forests, which sounds nice, but it's not necessarily the kind of forest where you go biking or trekking, but it's a monoculture forest, which is really heavily trying to go for capturing that carbon dioxide, so producing biomass. So there are a lot of scientific concerns about this. So as an alternative, this other scenario family was developed, which looked at what can we do to avoid that? Can we still go to 1.5 degrees without going to this very controversial technology? And they found, yes, we still can do it. Of course, we have to, what you see in the is going down, it's going into free fall almost right now, and it's going deep, very deep down, but it's feasible. And you are the key to this solution, to this world, to this universe, in which actually life is probably better than today from many perspectives. And of course, yes, I'm building all these passive houses, and I'm really very grateful to you that you're doing that, because a couple of years ago, when I did a report on for the Global Network for a Best Practice Network for Buildings, on how the world's building sector can look like by 2050, then I had a terrible time from my American reviewer, who kept saying that, we cannot include in our model that North America will ever go towards passive houses. This is never going to fly. This is a European technology. And the same kind of, or concept, and the same kind of argument I heard last year in New Zealand, and so on and so on. And it's just amazing to see what an enormous difference you are already making with this technology. But my not so welcoming messages are going to be that this is not enough. It's fantastic and it's crucial to build from today. We almost would need to build only passive houses, but it's not enough. We don't only have to build passive house new, but we also have to retrofit every single building, what we currently have in the developed world, also to passive house level. Even that is not going to be enough. We have to retrofit them to energy plus levels, turning them into the power plants of the 21st century. Unfortunately, this is not impossible, and I'm sure many of you are doing already such projects, and if you do, speak about it a lot and post it a lot. This is the Vienna Technical University before and after the retrofit to an energy plus passive house standard building. But the key to this was what? It was that it wasn't only the architecture, but really, and don't worry that it's in German. The point is that at the end of the day, look at this, they had to optimize 9,300 components in that building. Everything from the elevators to the servers to the tea kitchens and everything. But it was no rocket science. It was just a lot of just a lot of good ideas. So it can be done. But unfortunately, architecture alone is not enough anymore. We have to also look at what's in the building and do work on the two together, which you most of the time already doing, but excuse me, but I'm suggesting you have to do even more. And even that is unfortunately not enough to get to that 1.5 degree world. What excuse me, what this slide shows, this is from, and sorry, one more slide, but this is the last, from a paper in Nature that we have actually done together with your keynote speaker from tomorrow, Cynthia Rosenzweig, and many other authors. What this shows, and don't worry if you don't understand, but what this illustrates, that just building up the remaining urban infrastructure in the developing world and the required new urban infrastructure also in the developed and developing world due to population growth. Just this shaded 2 rectangles, this alone will already eat up about half of our remaining carbon budget to 1.5 degree world. So we haven't even turned on any of the lights yet. We haven't switched on any of the ACs yet, and we have already eaten up half of our remaining carbon budget. That's a tremendous liability, but it's also an opportunity, because it's you again who are key to avoiding this, avoiding having to embody all that carbon. And a lot of you are already working with these methods, but what I'm showing is that it's very important that all of you consider this in your work, that we need to move from steel and concrete and other carbon-intensive materials, and we have to ideally use bio-based materials and embody as much carbon as possible so that these are taken out of the carbon cycle for as long as possible And in that way, also the durability of buildings is tremendously important. This, for example, this house in Latvia has been done from these straw panels, which is already quite high-tech, but still using the very traditional, very simple material, but also this beautiful retrofit of Victorian semi in, I think it's in Manchester. This used recycled newspapers, for example, as its insulation. So these are also very important what materials you're using, because not only do you have to turn the buildings into power plants, but also really have to watch that during the whole retrofit or construction, let's try to emit as little carbon dioxide as possible. So let's use reuse materials or biomaterials. Fortunately, I do believe that this is possible and that we can do it. And together with all of you, we can do it, because you have done an amazing success in the last couple of years in North America. And I'm so proud of you and I'm so inspired by you. And finally, I just want to show you this new project. This is from that CU, my university here in the bottom, is also part of this. This will actually be the new home of our university in Vienna after 2023. It's a beautiful historic district, Art Nouveau district, with very beautiful historic buildings from the early of the previous century, over 70 buildings. And what we are doing, led by Schubert and Pearl, we are designing this also to be an energy plus district, and still keeping the historic heritage. In fact, retrofitting it to be even more faithful to the historic heritage. I do believe we can do it, because they are exactly the same company who have done it already with the Vienna Technical University. And I think if you succeed, and if you succeed with many of your projects that you're presenting in the next 2 days, then we can show the world that yes, we can get still the 1.5 degree world, but we don't have any time to lose. And to conclude, let me just show you just a few second message from Greta Thunberg. And I'm sure you heard about her, but nobody can say it as clearly as she can. Thank you for your attention.
Some people say that we are not doing enough to fight climate change, but that is not true. Because to not do enough, we have to do something. And the truth is, we are basically not doing anything. Yes, some people are doing more than they can. They are too few and too far from power to make a difference today. Some people say that the climate crisis is something that we all have created. But that is just another convenient lie. Because if everyone is guilty, then no one is to blame. And someone is to blame. Some people, some companies, and some decision makers in particular have known exactly what priceless values they are sacrificing to continue making unimaginable amounts of money. I want to challenge those companies and those decision makers into real and bold climate action, to set their economic goals aside and to safeguard the future living conditions for humankind. I don't believe for 1 second that you will rise to that challenge, but I want to ask you all the same. I ask you to prove me wrong, for the sake of your children, for the sake of your grandchildren, for the sake of life and this beautiful living planet. I ask you to stand on the right side of history. I ask you to pledge to do everything in your power to push your own business or government in line with the 1.5 degree world. Will you pledge to do that? Will you pledge to join me and the people all around the world in doing whatever it takes?
Thank you very much. Will you also stand on the right side of history?